Morning, Chela. I'm so glad you are here with me to talk
Thank
about
you.
um, end of life, cannabis. How do we integrate these conversations around stuff? So tell me, why am I talking to you? Besides, I love talking and getting educated by you. Like, who are you? Why are we talking about cannabis with you?
So, thank you so much for having us. First of all, my husband and I are family caregivers turned advocates. My mom had Alzheimer's disease for 10 years, which of course you know because that's how we met. And she passed last February. When we finally started incorporating cannabis therapeutics into her medicine, everything changed for us. She was able to engage with the family. We started about 2 years in to her journey. We started using cannabis. So my mom was somebody who used to use cannabis for gallstones.
Mm.
And when she was diagnosed, the doctor said, "Oh no, she can't use marijuana. It's bad for her memory." And we thought, well, you just told me she has Alzheimer's disease, and I'm pretty sure that that's bad for her memory. That's the only thing I know about it. And they were like, "Oh, no, no." And plus, they gave her all these other drugs, and
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea how they interacted with cannabis. So I just did what I thought the experts knew best to do. So we put her on antipsychotics and
Oh, wow.
anti-anxiety and anti-seizure and anti all the antis. She was
Yeah.
on 5 very, very powerful drugs. And when she was on those drugs, she fell 5 times in 3 weeks and went to the hospital a few times. And it was a huge problem. So we took her off of those drugs because also, as you know, the risks of those are sudden death and increased confusion and worsening of the symptoms of Alzheimer's disease.
Right.
And we transitioned her onto cannabis therapeutics because that's the only thing that seemed to help her.
Wow.
At the time, she had a brand new doctor at UCLA. She had just become a doctor. And her original doctor, who said, no, no marijuana, was no longer her doctor. The new doctor said, give her whatever she wants, because my mom was asking for it.
Yeah. The
So the
idea.
patient was asking, right?
Exactly. Your mother had history and she was asking for it. And it's so
Yeah.
amazing that the idea of co-teaming is so important in finding a doctor who's going to be a patient person advocate with you.
Yeah.
So can you demystify or just give us a little bit of Cannabis 101 tutorial?
Sure. Absolutely. So the reason cannabis works well in the body is we have a endocannabinoid system within our body. We make cannabinoids. Our body makes cannabinoids naturally, but you have to feed it the right things. Building blocks of endogenous endocannabinoids that we make inside our body are omega-3 and omega-6,
Oh, okay.
excellent sleep hygiene, leafy greens, exercise. Those are all things that feed and nourish the endocannabinoid system, which, by the way, is not taught in medical schools, even though it's been an established system in the body since the mid-'80s, which
Wow.
I think is malpractice. So cannabis nourishes the endocannabinoid system. The endocannabinoid system is responsible for balancing all the other systems of the body.
Okay.
So if you don't know about the endocannabinoid system and you're advising people on what they're supposed to do throughout their body, you're missing a big part of the puzzle. There are lots of doctors who know about the endocannabinoid system, and you can find them at the Society of Cannabis Clinicians website at cannabisclinicians.org. On our podcast, Cannabis Helps Dementia, we interview lots of Society of Cannabis Clinician doctors in practice. So I read a great article by Dr. Ethan Russo that sort of started us on this journey about how cannabis therapeutics is the future of neurology, and that's in Frontiers in Integrative Neuroscience.
Okay. I thought, were you going to go on?
No, go ahead.
All I know is CBD and THC. So I thank you for that. Just that whole background blew my mind. But All I know is CBD, THC. So talk to me about that, like
So
especially with dementia.
those are the two most common
Okay.
molecules within the cannabis plant.
Okay.
So the whole cannabis plant has THC, CBD, and a whole bunch of other flavonoids and terpenes in it that give it the full flower effect.
Okay.
The molecules, single molecules, because modern medicine prefers single molecules than a whole plant. So they'll tell you to take vitamin C, not necessarily eat oranges or broccoli or other things that
Oh,
have certain vitamins. They'll tell you to take the vitamins rather than saying eat certain foods. So modern medicine is more interested in molecules than it is whole plant.
got it.
However, the cannabis plant is so rich with medicine that we don't know anything about because of prohibition, that we can't really say what's doing what exactly, because cannabis remains on the Schedule 1 of drugs right next to heroin
Unbelievable.
and LSD, right? So there are many, many molecules within the cannabis plant. There's CBG, THCA, CBN. There's over 120 different molecules
Got
within
it.
the plant. So Israel is doing a lot of really good studies on each of the molecules. They're separating all the stuff out. Canada has 2 studies underway right now about how cannabis helps dementia. Continuum is doing one,
That's
and
repairing the
King's
world. And
College.
that Tikkun Olam is repairing the world in
Yeah,
Hebrew.
yeah,
Good
yes,
shout
it
out for
is.
that.
Yeah, totally. And the other organization, King's College London, is doing a study on a 1-to-1 THC to CBD, rather CBD to THC medicine that's approved in 30 countries, including England. It's called Sativex, made by GW Pharma, and King's College London is going to be doing a study on that this year for people living with Alzheimer's disease. And I think they're going to have tremendous success with that, because that's the recipe. So people living with dementia in facilities in Northern California, they're getting a 1-to-1 preparation of 10 milligrams CBD to THC. So that's what they're getting
How are they
in
getting it? Like what form is it in?
orally under the tongue. They're getting it in a tincture. Some of them are getting it in capsules. But they started this program in this facility with edibles, with cookies and things, but they're not as easy to know how much is in the whole thing. It's harder to dose. This is the problem with the plant, is that we haven't been
Oh, so
able,
that's one of the
and
challenges.
the plant on Schedule 1, those two things together cause tremendous issues, because to study a plant is one thing, but to study anything on Schedule 1, you have to go through a million different hoops. So
Got it.
that's why they don't have the studies that everybody wants,
It's,
because it's extremely hard to study anything on the Schedule 1 of drugs.
that's interesting. So it is legal here in California and some other
It's
states.
legal in
So
California
yeah,
and 33 other states.
yes. So with that, you have a lot of information and the reasons where we are in terms of cannabis being more integrated. But what are you suggesting now for people that work with individuals that are aging or dementia, combinations, how to talk to healthcare professionals about it, families? I really love the fact that you said sometimes it's patient first or individual first in terms of what they're comfortable with, but what does it look like? How can we start the conversation and start integrating? And what does that look like?
So we've spoken to a lot of doctors and nurses and administrators and professionals in the field. And I think the best way to approach it with them to get the patient the care they deserve is to ask them, what's the harm?
Mm.
The United States Department of Health holds a patent specifically on cannabinoids for Alzheimer's disease. 33 state departments of health have either Alzheimer's disease or other neurological conditions on their list of qualifying conditions for medical cannabis.
Oh, wow.
So you can go to your doctor with the list from your state and say, hey, on this list is this neurologic condition, which is very similar to my loved one's dementia. What's the harm? Because here's the thing, in 70 years of prohibition, they have not found any harm.
Mm.
So that's how you can approach the conversation. And if your doctor is still really resistant, say, how about CBD?
Oh, just CBD.
Start with a full spectrum CBD, not a CBD isolate. Isolate removes every other compound from the plant and keeps only that single molecule. And there really aren't any tests to know how that reacts on the body. We know that this plant has never killed a single soul ever in the history of the world, but we don't know about single molecules.
Okay.
Because in the plant, it gets balanced. So if you take a plant, let's say some people might be familiar with cannabis and getting high and smoking pot, smoking a joint. But if you smoke a joint that has a flower that has rich in CBD as well as THC, you're not going to feel that same intoxicated effect because CBD takes up some of the receptors that the THC binds to. So you won't have that same high feeling, but you'll still receive the medicinal benefits that THC gives.
For dementia, what are the reasons why somebody should consider using cannabis? Like, what are the main features that you would say it's helpful with Alzheimer's, besides going in all to the challenges of this disease?
All of the behavioral symptoms that have no other pathway are benefited by elements of cannabis and cannabinoids. So if you go to that article in Frontiers in Integrative Neuroscience by Dr. Rousseau, you will see exactly which molecule helps which symptoms specifically, but it helps with aggression, agitation, anxiety, appetite, psychosis. It even helps with memory and clearing the plaques and tangles. So cannabis and cannabis therapy really, really helps older people and people living with dementia. I have a friend who refuses to implement any dietary improvements, which also we know can help people living with dementia, but she refuses. But she will take cannabis medicine. Okay. So I can't get her to do any other thing. Right, at least I can get her to take the cannabis medicine. And that helps her stay even because it helps with so many different things. Otherwise, she'd be taking pills all day long.
Yeah. So do you suggest of course, working with your doctor, as we were saying, and getting maybe a medical marijuana card or something like that. But if somebody was going to go on their own and want to do, what do you suggest asking? Like, if you're walking into a dispensary, do you suggest talking to your doctor first or going to a dispensary and just trying to, like, what do you ask? Like, what do you suggest, to start it off if you're a novice at this? Like, what do you...
That's a great question. The unfortunate thing is that most doctors know nothing about cannabis, and their education has been to vilify it because that's been the policy and politics around cannabis therapeutics. So I would find a specialty doctor who knows something about cannabis, and you can find them at the Society of Cannabis Clinicians website for sure. You can ask around, of course. You can ask your doctor if they know anybody. If you want to go it on your own, by all means. This plant has never killed anybody, but you may be taking other medications that do interact with it. Okay. There are lots of tools that you can utilize. I believe in empowering patients. I believe that they call it the practice of medicine for a reason. And we have to go in with as much knowledge and research of our own as possible. So
I feel like there's a podcast. CBD, I think you mentioned there might be a podcast that would be very helpful for coming up soon where we can get that information.
Yes. My husband and I are launching a podcast called Cannabis Helps Dementia. You can find us on all the major podcasting places. But of course, if you have a lot of stuff going on, you got to consult your doctor. Of course, I'm the one that's going to say, try it, because what's the harm? because I know what you're going through. I know. Your doctor may not necessarily know. I mean, I've been in the fight, and I'm in the fight now. I just have a loved one who has Alzheimer's disease, and this last week had a major change in condition. She's on cannabis therapeutics, but she was off the rails this week. And we went to the emergency room and all the things. And she obviously had a UTI, but they didn't test her for it.
Oh, wow.
Eventually, we got her some antibiotics by the end of the week, and she clearly is improved from that. So, you know, even me, who has a lot of family experience with this whole journey and cannabis therapeutics, hey, if you got a UTI, you got a UTI.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So try to work with a doctor. Try to educate your doctor.
Beautiful.
If your doctor doesn't know anything about it, bring in information for them from the Society of Cannabis Clinicians. It's a trusted website.
Beautiful. Thank you for being such a wonderful educator and advocate for family caregivers, for dementia care, and cannabis. Along with that, I truly value your time and what you're advocating for. So thank you so much, Chela.
Stefanie, thank you so much for everything you're doing and all you've done. And yeah, cannabis helped my mom from the minute we started using it until her dying breath.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you so much. What is your mother's name?
Lisa.
All right, Lisa, we honor you. Okay, thanks, Chela.
Thank you.